Today we're going to talk about a man named Patrice Lumumba, the first ever Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. His story's incredible, a national hero to many, and to the world, a martyr for freedom.
So you have to wonder, how does this happen? How does the leader who embodied the dream of a new, independent nation become a global symbol for the anti-colonial struggle in just 7 months? His story is an absolute whirlwind of political ambition, Cold War paranoia, and, in the end, just a devastating betrayal.
Okay, so to really get a handle on his tragic fall, you first have to understand his absolutely unbelievable rise. Lumumba wasn't just some politician. He was the charismatic, powerful voice of a people who were just desperate for their freedom.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's almost hard to believe how fast this all went down. In October of '59, he's in a prison cell. By January, he's flown to Brussels to negotiate his country's independence. And by June, he's the prime minister. Think about that for a second. From a political prisoner to prime minister in less than a year. It's a political climb that's pretty much unheard of.
So what made Lumumba's message so powerful and, so different? It was his laser focus on unity. See, while other political movements were breaking down along old tribal and ethnic lines, his party, the MNC, was pushing for a single, unified Congo. He was a true nationalist, a pan-Africanist, who believed the nation's real strength was in its people coming together, not as separate tribes, but as one country, finally in charge of its own destiny. And that message, it resonated everywhere.
But that dream of unity, well, it was about to be tested in the most brutal way possible. The moment independence finally arrived, it brought with it total and utter chaos.
You can see the clash of two worlds right here, on Independence Day itself. First, you have Belgium's King Baudouin, who gives this incredibly condescending speech praising the genius of his ancestors' colonial project. Then, Lumumba steps up to the microphone totally unscripted, and he delivers this fiery speech reminding everyone that Congo's freedom wasn't a gift, it was won by fighting. A struggle of tears, of fire, and of blood. The Congolese people in the room were electrified. The Western diplomats, they were absolutely stunned.
That speech really set the tone, and things went downhill, fast. The crisis exploded almost immediately. Within 5 days, the army mutinies. Belgium uses this as a pretext to send thousands of troops back in, occupying major cities. And then comes the biggest blow of all. The province of Katanga, where most of the country's mineral wealth was, secedes with full Belgian backing. The brand new nation was literally falling apart.
So with his country fracturing right before his eyes, Lumumba starts desperately searching for help from the outside world. And that search put him directly in the crosshairs of the Cold War.
His first move was the logical one. He went to the United Nations and to the United States. He begged them for help to stop the secession in Katanga, which he saw, correctly, as being propped up by Belgium. But he got nothing. The UN sent peacekeepers, but they weren't allowed to actually intervene, and the US just kind of shrugged and said they'd only help through the UN. To Lumumba, it was clear, the West was choosing its NATO ally, Belgium, over his new nation.
And the thing is, Lumumba was very clear about where he stood. He said it himself, colonialism and communism are equally deplorable. He didn't want to be a pawn in the Cold War. He just wanted a neutral, truly independent Congo that wasn't controlled by either the East or the West.
But when the West turned its back on him, he made a decision that, well, it sealed his fate. Feeling frustrated and completely out of options, Lumumba asked the Soviet Union for help. In the super paranoid atmosphere of the Cold War, that was all the proof Washington and Brussels needed. To them, he wasn't a desperate nationalist trying to save his country anymore. He was a communist.
And this is where the story gets really dark. We're about to see how all these different forces, his local rivals and these global superpowers, all came together to bring about his final, violent end.
Make no mistake, the conspiracy against him went to the very highest levels. We know this now from declassified files. Belgium sent a cable calling for the definitive elimination of Lumumba. The CIA, apparently with a nod from President Eisenhower himself, actually came up with a plan to poison him. And even the British government, as we found out later, secretly wanted him got rid of. We're talking about 3 of the world's major powers all actively working to take him down.
And you can see here just how fast the walls closed in on him. September 5th, he's dismissed as prime minister. Just over a week later, his own army chief, Joseph Mobutu, stages a coup and places him under house arrest. He makes this daring escape in late November, trying to get to his political stronghold. But it doesn't last. By December 1st, he's captured, and the final, tragic act is set in motion.
And the capture itself, that was a whole other level of betrayal. The man whose forces captured him was Colonel Mobutu, a man Lumumba had trusted, a man he had personally promoted to lead the entire army.
And then came the move that was basically a death sentence. He was put on a plane and flown to the breakaway state of Katanga, where he was handed over directly to his most bitter rival, Moise Trambe. On the night of January 17, 1961, after being viciously beaten and tortured, Lumumba and two of his colleagues were driven out into the dark, to a remote spot in the woods.
There, he was shot and killed by a firing squad that was commanded by Belgian officers. But for his killers, even that wasn't enough. They were so determined to prevent his grave from becoming a symbol, a shrine for his followers, that they later dug up his body, chopped it into pieces, and dissolved it in sulfuric acid. They wanted to literally erase him.
And this is where the story of Patrice Lumumba, the man, ends, and the story of Lumumba, the symbol, the martyr, really begins. He became a hero without a grave.
For 61 years. Just think about that. For more than 6 decades, there was nothing. No body for his family to bury, no grave for his country to honor. He was just gone.
And the truth of what was left, it's just horrifying. All that remained of this world leader was a single gold-capped tooth. It had been kept as some kind of sick trophy by one of the Belgian policemen who had helped get rid of the body.
Then, finally in 2022, in a ceremony filled with emotion, the Belgian government returned that single tooth to his children. It was a somber, long overdue homecoming, and it came with a formal apology from Belgium, which at last acknowledged its moral responsibility in his assassination.
And that's really the true measure of his impact. His enemies tried to wipe him from the face of the earth, but his ideas, they only grew stronger. They became an ideology, Lumumbisme. It's a powerful blend of nationalism, Pan-African unity, and the fight for real economic independence that has inspired freedom fighters all across Africa for generations.
So we're left with this really tough question. Lumumba's life and his death are this chilling case study of the incredible forces that can be unleashed when one person, one nation, dares to challenge the established world order. It forces us to ask, what is the real price of independence?